Hi knitters, welcome to PJ Knits. I'm a knitter, a blogger, and a YouTube podcaster. Thanks for stopping by. I live in central Illinois and today is February 1st and it is sunny, a little bit windy, and 29 degrees in the afternoon. So, I have a big announcement. I just got notice this morning. We have 501 subscribers. Yay! Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you who come back and have subscribed. I hope that in my knitting journal here, I am inspiring you. And I am so pleased with the community that we are growing here. Thank you so, so much. I am grateful for others that have put my name out there, for other podcasts who've given me shout outs, and I do appreciate it so much. Thank you. I started this 3 or 4 years ago just for fun, and now it's just even more fun. So again, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate those who stop by, those who watch, and those who pass the word. I am just super amazed when I got that notification this morning. So thank you so much. So let's talk knitting. My goal or plan or things that I would love to take care of this year is to knit sweaters before the season gets here. Now, I know that that's not always, something that can happen because, I get squirrel moments when something comes up and it's like, oh my gosh, I have to cast that on and we're, in the dead of winter or heading hopefully out of the winter. So, that's my goal for this year. One of my planned goals. And again, it doesn't always happen that way. And you know what? There's no shame in it if you don't. As I've said before, there's no shaming here. You can, if you want to knit, a winter sweater in the summertime, you can do that. Or if you want to knit a summer sweater in the summertime as we're heading in to fall, that's perfectly okay too. Because you know what? I get that we all live in different climates. Those down in Australia are having a summer and hot right now. So you're not going to be wearing or knitting these winter sweaters right now. But you can maybe hopefully think about them for, when your winter does set in. And vice versa for those of us who are up in the Midwest. Or if you're in Florida, sometimes just a tweak of the yarn can make the sweater doable for you. So that's kind of my goal, for 2023, among other things. And so I'm hoping that if you have some ideas of some sweaters that you're knitting, I'd love to hear about them down below in the comments. But again, so let's we're just going to talk today just about, there's a lot of things sitting around me that I want to talk to you about, and I want to tell you about basically, and kind of do a wrap up on January journal, my knitting journal as well. So let's just get started. We're going to start with the finished object. This particular one is the Cozy Classic Raglan. This is by Jessie May of Jessie May Designs. I started knitting this particular one back in October of 2022, and I was holding a strand of Molly Girl yarn in baseline in her fingering weight in Riptide, and then a thread of Cumulus by Fiberspace, which is an alpaca mulberry silk in Moonlight. And I fell in love with the Cumulus, this alpaca. It is so soft on the skin, and it was just super, super fun and a joy to knit with. I knit a size medium, which is a 42-inch finished bust, and I added 2 inches to her length because hers was somewhat cropped. And I kind of sort of wish now that I maybe would have added maybe just at least 1 more inch to it. And I certainly could have done that, and I could still do that if I wanted to. but I'm going with what I've got, because so often when I'm done with a sweater, I'm done with a sweater, and I want to wear it, and I will wear it, and it feels so good on. So that maybe have what I would have liked to have done, if in hindsight, even though I had my measurements. I just think when I'm wearing it now, I just wish I had just 1 more inch, and I knit it to my normal measurements for a sweater. So but I'm okay with that. I did it on a size 7 needle, and for the body, and it did a 3 on the rib. All of my modifications and all the info is on my project page, and on Ravelry. On Ravelry, I have 2 things. My projects are under pennyj, PENNYJ, and our group on Ravelry is PJKnits. So I'd love for you to join join the group, and or just check the threads out. I have put on there yesterday on the Ravelry group under the PJKnits sweater project. I also put on a blog post yesterday on www.blogspot.pjknits.com, www.pjknits.blogspot.com, the other way around, reverse that. I put some tips and hints, and I used this sweater basically as my tips and hints. What I was doing, how I accommodated, not really accommodated but gave you some information, some thoughts on this particular one, and a website on how I figured out the decreases, the math, just some things that I do in measuring, how to measure a sleeve when you have this stark piece, or on a raglan. So I just want you to be aware that I did just a couple of hints and tips on both of those places. One of the things that I like to do on most of my sweaters now, because sometimes it's hard to figure out what is the front and back after you're all done and you put it away. So I put as one of the hints or the tips on how I make a little tag or a loop in the back when I'm weaving in that cast on in, so that forever now I know where my back is on my sweaters. Now, it wasn't as bad. It's not as bad on this particular one. This is the no frills that I did out of a strand of mohair and a strand of fingering weight a couple of years ago. Not as much a problem with this particular one, because it had a definite scoop neck. But on Jessie Mae's Raglan, for me, it's a little difficult to tell which is the front and the back, and kind of like I'm just grabbing it to put it on. So I want to know right away which is my front or back. So I also put that on there, and I also put it on this one as well. So just check those things out. And again, they're no great aha moments, but maybe if you've not knit a sweater before, they might be aha moments, and you may already incorporate some of these things on there. So just check those couple of tips and hints out on either one of those places. So I wanted to talk about, too, if you have never knit a sweater before and you are thinking about possibilities for sweaters. One of the ones that I really like, and this falls under that category of the throw and go sweater, because my lifestyle is such now that I need something I just like things to kick around in, maybe, but I want them to be my own hand knits. And I knitted this several years ago. This is the Super Simple Summer Sweater by Hock, and which I now refer to as the 4S sweater. I have knit this in the stripe pattern for a transitional sweater, but also I knit this out of Briar Rose 4th of July worsted, which is a yarn that I really love. The thing I like about this particular sweater, and I have worn it a lot. I wore it a lot last winter. It was my go-to throw over my pajamas at night when it was chilly. It was last week when we had snow and I had to go out and shovel the snow. I had a long sleeve t-shirt on, and I threw this on over my t-shirt and then my jacket and went outside in the snow and did the shoveling in it and left it on. I don't know about some of you, but here in central Illinois, our Silco bills are eking up, and so, which is our gas and light bill. And a sweater comes in handy if you want to turn maybe your heat down a couple of degrees, as I have. And it's also been a great sweater when it's super, super chilly outside. We had 0 degrees earlier this week. I just throw it on at night when I'm sitting there watching TV and doing some knitting. So this really falls under that throw and go sweater, the no frills sweater as well. And the thing I like about this particular one, not doing it in the stripe pattern, doing it in just a worsted weight yarn, maybe out of your stash, you know, out of Penny's yarn shop or your personal yarn shop. The thing I like about that is that you don't see the increases. And so it's a nice sweater, you know, just to knit fairly quickly and have a throw and go sweater, and well into the springtime, right, when it's chilly, if you're sitting out on the porch in the early morning or late at night. So I just wanted to call your attention to that particular sweater if you are a new sweater knitter, or even if you're not a new sweater knitter. It's a great sweater to use some of your stash out of. So I wanted to call your attention to that. So sweaters, for me, that I have talked about before, and I'm getting excited about. That's why I was so excited to get this one done. I am still working on my Yume sweater. I cannot, can I? I cannot cast on a new one, right, until I finish Yume. Isn't that what I'm telling myself? I am telling myself that, and I desperately, desperately, after a last night's Zoom, want to cast on something new. But I am knitting on my sleeves on Yume, and I need to get moving on that, because I am ready to cast on another sweater. This is Yume. I am doing it. This is a yarn that I purchased last year at the mini meetup. It is by Isabel Kramer, and I've talked about it before. Like I said, I'm knitting on the sleeves, and I cannot cast on another sweater until this is done. But so I really need to get back at this particular sweater. It is out of Berroco Remix Light. And the thing that I love about this is it is going to be a great transitional sweater for me. This one, again, I'm loving this yarn. The feel of this yarn is so much nicer than I thought it was going to be. It truly is. It has just a really cool neck treatment that draws the neck up, which I'm just going to love. And I'm going to love wearing this. Starting now all the way through spring, as long as I can. And I am going to do the long sleeve version of that particular one as well. And this one, I started back in September. So you can see I've been knitting on it a while. And I've got it in my journal, which is hard to see. We'll go that way. I've got it in my journal. I am doing the 41.5 finished bust because I want it to be a little bit close fitting, and I am doing this on size 5 needle for that, and so I'm hoping to get that done before we podcast again. I purchased the Remix Light. I purchased that last summer, and I purchased it at Elgin Knitworks, which is a lovely yarn shop, and can't wait to get back there. So this is what I'm knitting right now, and this is a late winter and a transitional sweater for sure. But as much as I'm loving that, I'm ready to start a couple of new sweaters, and so I've swatched. I mean, I think the swatching is perfectly okay so that I can be ready, right? And I swatched my sea salt yarn from Madeline Tosh and told you about the sweater that this one's slated for. And she's walking along the beach, talked about that before as well. And that's what kind of gave me the thought that I wanted to do it, because I thought, well, hey, someday I'll be on the beach and it would be fun to have that sweater to throw on and walk down the beach. So I did my swatch. I love the fabric. I always border my swatches in garter so that I can get a good gauge swatch in there. I love the feel of this yarn, and I have to, full disclosure, because I'm trying to use my personal yarn store this year. It doesn't hurt to go away from that, and I went away from that. I'm just, I'm owning up to that. But the reason I'm saying that is because I actually went out to Simply Sock, I believe, up in Fort Wayne, and they had extra skeins of this. So I really think I needed, at the time I bought what my local yarn shop had in this, and I really think with doing the swatch and with maybe adding some length to this that I needed some extra skeins. So they had the sea salt, and so I ordered 2 skeins from them to go with it, and I will do the helical knitting on it. So because I know that they're not the same, they're not even dyed at the same time. But anyway, so I have my swatch. I am ready for sea salt when I can. The other thing that I purchased from up there was another skein of Molly Ringwald, which I had 3, 4 in my stash, and again I bought them from my local yarn shop back when they were still in business. And so I knew that I probably, again, for what I wanted to do or thought I wanted to do, I wanted to make sure that I had enough, because I didn't want to make it too short. And as I was said in the last podcast, I was inclined to do Autumn League pullover out of 2 of Wands. And then I was going through my file of transitional sweaters, and I found one with a sticky note on it that said in 2018 I wanted to do this I wanted to use the Molly Ringwald. I wanted to make Newsom, which is a mitered cardigan by Bristol Ivy. So I had earmarked it for that. And so between the last podcast and this weekend, I'm like, okay, you wanted to do this sweater, and that's what you earmarked it for, so that's what you're going to do, right? Right. So last night, again, I was on a Zoom with Dude Knits and a bunch of other lovely knitters, and several of them are casting on Autumn League pullover. And so now I've been enabled again that I'm going back to Autumn League for my Molly Ringwald. You can change your mind, because you know what? We can do what we want. Knitter's choice. So anyway, I believe that's what this is going to be. And now it's time to start swatching for it. Stay tuned. Next podcast, I'll let you know where I'm at with that. So those are some options for transitional sweaters. I have others as well that are definitely on my brain that I'm going to talk to you about as well. But I just thought you would get a hoot out of that. My process for there is no process. Any given moment, my brain can go another direction. I can be enabled. But anyway, so I thought you all would get a kick out of that we can change our minds in our knitting. So I always do show notes ahead of time and put them in my lovely little notebook here, and I try very hard to stay with these notes. But in the course of the last few days, I was like, yeah, I want to talk about this sweater. I want to talk about that sweater. But then I wanted to tell you, and I wanted to talk about just things that I'm knitting on in general as well. And so I wanted to tell you about a book that I just picked up and some books from my library. I wanted to talk about those, and I thought there's just not going to be enough time to do that. So I'm going to talk to you about these books that and I'll save the other sweaters for a future episode. Anyway, recently, my local yarn shop, the Fiber Universe, got this book in 52 Weeks of Easy Knits. And I've been on the fence about buying books lately because I bought a book last fall. And what happened was, just recently I saw where that book was offering those patterns as single patterns for sale on Ravelry. And whereas I loved the book and I loved the designs in it, I haven't knit any of those yet. So I put the money out for the book. I love looking at the whole book. I've not knit any of them. And now all of a sudden, the single patterns are out on Ravelry. So that's my thought on going out and buying a book as soon as it's out there. Yes, I want to help. I want to support my local yarn shop. I want to support designers, most definitely. And, you know, I like books in my library collection. But I also, you know, I'm not going to knit all of the designs in it. So I probably would have just picked out a design and purchased it when I'm ready to knit it, right? Well, that doesn't always stop me from buying something, but so I'm leery about continually adding books to my library only because I have a lot of books in my library, and they're kind of going to waste, really, for me. I guess if I, you know, if I have to say anything about it. So I was leery about buying the book. I looked at it several times, and then finally, a week or so back, I decided, you know, I'd received a gift card for Christmas, and it was time to indulge myself in buying the book. And I brought it home and looked at it really closely, and I started making little Post-it notes of ones that I love, including this one. Now, will I knit everything out of it? No, but there were a couple of sweaters in here that I already, you know, like I said, and I already started earmarking this. And this is a line of publication, which I love their publications, but there were several. And I'm just going to share some sweaters in here that I really like. I put a Post-it note or sweaters, and it's not just sweaters. Let's put it that way. It's not just sweaters. There is some scarves, some shawls in it as well. There's a lot of things. And I do see me maybe knitting a lot of things out of this particular book, but I just wanted to share some things from this book with you. And the thing that I love about it is what I don't like is there's not a Ravelry download code, so I'll have to copy the patterns with my printer, which is fine. I would love it if Lina would do that. It would put a code in the back for us to Ravelry or some sort of something like that. But I understand. I understand why they don't as well. But it would be nice from a purchaser standpoint if there was a way to get the patterns, which I'll tell you about here in a second about something else if I don't forget. But anyway, what I love about it in here is they do tell you what the yarn is that they actually knit the sweater out of. But down below that, they say, if you decide to use another yarn, you will need approximately so many yards of DK or worsted weight or whatever. So they tell you right there that if you can't find this yarn, which a lot of us can't, there are alternatives. Not the names of the alternatives, but the weights, which I really appreciate that in a book like this. This first one I just want to show you is called Jutu, I believe. It's by Isabel Kramer. So there is name people in here, name designers, and some new designers to me, which I'm loving. So here's a nice little cardigan. I think that was cool. I earmarked that one. I earmarked, this one's by Vera Jusela. I'm sure I'm totally slaughtering that name. But this one is definitely, this one earns a little star for me. This particular one gives you some options of Aran weight yarn. It is knit with a DK and silk mohair. I love this, and I think this, I have some DK in my personal yarn shop that would be perfect for this. Some scraps if you have those, but I'm loving this, and I have no idea Vimine or Vimine how to pronounce this, but look at this sweater. This is the cover sweater. I love that. And I love the alternative that they also put in here, which is just if a Briar Rose type yarn, a Tweedy yarn, a solid Cascade 220. Gave you some options for that. Another great option for a throw and go sweater, I think. So I'm loving that one. That one's an asterisk because it's like I want to knit that and I want to knit it this springtime. So it's going on to my list. You know, this one, again, Rebecca Mauser. Klusberg, I guess. It's a slip over. It's worsted weight yarn, and I love this. I have some Cascade 220 skeins, and so I really wouldn't have to buy anything. I can do it from my personal yarn shop. But I love this vest as well out of the book. That one caught my eye as well. This one for spring, early spring and into the summer. This is Corrali, and again, a designer that I don't know of, but I love this. I earmarked this for summer. This would be, I think this would be great out of the Berroco Remix Light as well. That would be fun. It's worsted weight. They've used a worsted weight yarn, so I know that there is a, and they've used, this one that is knit out of Shelter. I do have Shelter in my stash, but it's not, I don't want to do it for the summertime. But I know that Berroco has a regular remix, so I'm thinking this would be fun to investigate that, and I'm sure my local yarn shop will be carrying something close or already has something. I'm going to save this one for last. This is Vera Valimaki. This is Saplessi, I believe. She has a little label on this that this is super easy. And this one is Aran weight as well. And this is one my local yarn shop posted last weekend on Instagram. Every week she will post one of the items from this book for 2023 along with yarns that she has in stock. The Fiber Universe in Peoria. So here's that one, the stripes. I think that has potential as well for a throw and go most definitely. I'm loving that one. And this one is Helmy. This is another, this is by Isabel Kramer as well. Done out of sport weight yarn. I see this as right now as a transitional sweater and gives you the look of a yoke, some color work, but not color work. I like that one. So you can see, when I got the book home, there were ones that were very doable, I thought, for me. This one is Nina Palmarenki, called Diamond Twill. And this is 2 strands of sport weight held together. And again, this would be a great one for now or in the fall. A transitional type vest to throw over things. Looks like a fairly easy chart to do. This particular one I definitely would lengthen. It's a shorter length. And then this one here by Sylvia Watts Cherry. This is called True Stripes. And maybe not with the pockets, but this has potential for a throw and go for a summer sweater, I think, out of using a DK cotton with. I think this would be fun if you're around a beach as well to throw and go on the beach in the springtime or whatever. It just is reminds me very beachy. I like that True Stripes. So I think that would be fun as well. And then there is some socks in here. So it's not just sweaters. Like I said, there is some shawls. There's some wraps. This one's by Lindsay Fowler. the top and the wrap, we kind of like that for summertime as well. And then finally, one that I have earmarked, and I put on it next fall, but this is not happening next fall. This is going to be one of those that I'm going to digress. This is one that I bought yesterday, the yarn. I had been looking at it last time. This is Malabrigo, Frank Ochre, and Hollyhock. And I can't wait to do my swatch and cast this one on as well. This is going to be one of those sweaters that I am going to knit on down at my local yarn shop, the Fiber Universe in Peoria. And the reason so is when I'm knitting down there, I like to be knitting on her yarns whenever possible when I'm in the shop. Frank Ochre is the yarn that this sweater I'm going to show you next was actually knit out of. And she did not have the yarn that was the contrast, but we decided that this would be wonderful. I looked at this a week ago when I was at the yarn shop, had it in my hands, saw this sweater. Everybody was like, oh, you need to do that. And I didn't buy it. I left it there because I was like, I'm trying to do my yarn shop. We're going to Montreal in May. I want to buy the yarn there. And I was trying really, really hard not to buy yarn if I didn't have to. But I couldn't resist because I really want to knit this next sweater, and I want to knit it like PDQ. And so it's going to be as soon as Yume's done. I don't even know how to pronounce that, Yume or Yume. Anyway, I digress. But here it is. This is by Paula Pereira. She is the same one who did the daily sweater, a Purl Soho, and I've not knit one of hers yet, but I want to knit that daily pullover or granito out of my Purl Soho in cobalt blue. And so I saw this one. This is also by her. And so I am eager to do the swatching on this, but maybe I'll swatch in the next few days because, swatching is okay until I finish my Yume. Do you love this? And we love the fact that they had the contrast at the bottom and the sleeves, but we did not like that she had, I love the ensemble, let's put it that way, of the pants and all that. But a lot of people don't see that there's a contrast down there at the bottom. And I'm also thinking about when I go to cast on of putting that contrast hollyhocks to cast on in the first row around the neck as well, just to bring that up around my face. So I've been, like I said, I was dying to knit this a week ago, and sometimes you try really hard not to buy yarn, and you just do, because this was a case that I knew I didn't have anything in my stash, and this was a case where what I saw the model wearing, I wanted that colorway. And sometimes it's okay to not knit your color that you always wear, right? It's out of the box, and I'm just looking forward to that knit. So here's a close-up of that particular one as well. And you can see the contrast there on her sleeves. I am looking forward to this this knit, this particular one. And again, it's out of the Malabrigo, and so I could support my local yarn shop in two ways this week. And so I'm loving the things in this book, and so this is one of those that it's a hit. It's a hit, and I will be knitting out of it way before it hits Ravelry, which is okay. So I wanted to share those things, those couple of digressions for sweater knitting and some of my sweater knits to come that I am super, super anxious to get started knitting. So, oh my gosh, we're at a half an hour. Let's all take a little sip here. Because, guys, I have more to talk about. I am sorry that this is running super, super long. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I want to talk about a new pattern that just came out last couple of days. This is the Row by Row Sampler Cowl by Irene Designs, and she is Irene of the 3-Ply podcast. Her pattern just came out. We heard about this pattern last summer at the Frivolous and Frugal and the 3-Ply podcast mini meetup, which we're going to again at the end of July, which is a knitting adventure up in the Chicago area. I can't wait. Debbie and I are going. We are so looking forward to that fun and seeing everybody and seeing a lot of you as well. So that's our one of our my summer knitting adventures that I am totally looking forward to. So at that mini meetup, if you don't know, Irene has row by row socks, and we believe it was Noelle and a group of several people talking about how we thought how Noelle thought rather that Irene should do a version of it in a cowl. And so last weekend it came out, and I purchased it off of Ravelry. And the cool thing about this, Irene is donating all the proceeds to this pattern to the mini meetup to offset the conference rooms that we are in, which I think is a wonderful and thoughtful thing for her to do, to help with the conference room, because they're not cheap, and the meetup is totally free. You just have to do your hotel room if you are staying there. And again, they do accept donations to offset some of that. But I think this is super cool of Irene to do that. So purchased that yesterday. And so today I went to my personal yarn shop, because I would buy yarn for it if I didn't have anything. But I was looking, it is done out of a DK. And I was looking, I had a couple of leftovers from a sweater that I knit a couple of years ago, and out of Sunday Knits, her Eden yarn, Carol Sunday's yarn. This is a 3-ply sport weight yarn. Oh yeah, sorry, I am so sorry about that, guys. Trying to do it in daylight doesn't work. Coming in here, I've got my ring light. I should have put it on instead today, but I was taking advantage of the sun. But anyway, I digress. Sorry about that. So I had this leftover skein. It is 100% merino, and the colorway is Dove. And so I'm going to knit mine up, my row by row sampler cowl out of it, and probably sooner rather than later. This would be a fun little knit to do as well. So I wanted to call all of your attention to this brand new pattern out by Irene, and how wonderful that was for her to put that out there and to donate the proceeds. How cool is that? So other things, what I'm knitting on besides Yume or whatever, to get that done, I am focused right now on a hospice shawl, because we have hospice next Thursday, and I definitely want to have this done for then. I'm trying really hard to have more shawls when I have hospice meetings, to have something to give them, because I've been knitting on the same ones for a while, because I've been knitting on my own. And I think it's so important, if you have a local hospice home, that you might talk to them, or talk to your knitters that you knit with, or your knitting group, to start a hospice prayer shawl group, to knit shawls or wraps or lap blankets. It is such a rewarding, I think, for me, a rewarding experience. We've been doing it for many years now, and I can't say how much I appreciate our hospice home locally. I've talked about this before. We were, within hours of the tall guy being admitted to the hospice home here last year, and I was confident, and I knew that our local hospice home would take care of him and give him the care that he needed, that I couldn't. We didn't make it that far, but I knew how much, from being part of the hospice prayer shawl group for our local home, how important these blankets and wraps were, and it is my way of giving back to that home. I took a tour probably in the first couple of times that we were at the hospice home starting up the hospice prayer shawl group, and I knew then that should I or a loved one ever be of need to a hospice home, that I definitely wanted to pursue that we would be able to go there. And I 100% behind the work they do. So this is my way of giving back to them. This is my little thought process to you, that if you are so inclined to do hospice prayer shawls for your local hospice home, seek them out, see if that's something that they will accept. I know it's so comforting, maybe not always to the patient, because the patient may not understand or be aware of what's going on, but something to throw over their shoulders, to know that it was knit by a knitter that felt strongly to do that. And I know just from hearing from impact stories that we would get, how much patients' families enjoyed having them have that particular a shawl around their shoulders, whether they and a lot of them would take them home with them after the patient had passed away, and had fond memories, maybe to wrap themselves up a little bit of something. Our local group also does a lot of red, white, and blue ones, because they have veterans that go there as well. And I know that the veteran families and the veterans themselves appreciate those. And so that's also an option, something that several of our ladies who knit with us do, and I've done a few of those as well. So anyway, that's a long build up to tell you what I'm knitting on. I wanted to get this done. One of the go-to ones that I love, this pattern, I've knit it several times. I knit it once before for hospice, and once for me, and I'm knitting it on it again. This is Aise. Aise by Espace Tricot. This is when Melissa and Lisa were the original owners. This was a pattern that they put out. This is a free pattern, and I do love using this one over and over. This is Aise. And the nice thing about this pattern, for me and for hospice knitting, is that you can use any yarn. You can use a heavy yarn. I've done it with the fingering weight. I've done it on a sport weight, I believe, the first one I did. And this particular one is the Cascade yarns wave yarn. This is it's pretty much I would say like a light worsted weight yarn. And so I want to finish this one up. I'm knitting it out of there, and it changes. You can see the yarn, and I'm loving the knitting on this. And I've got one more skein to put on this, so I'm hoping to get it done for next Thursday's meeting and blocked. So right now, this is what I'm knitting on. I put my Yume aside for right now to knit on this, because I really want this one done. I have another thought option for the next hospice shawl. So that's what's on my needles, what I'm knitting a lot of on right now. Recently I pulled something out of my little bin, and again, this is when you don't want to do I don't want to knit on the hospice one, or want to this was another one of those whips that I want to get done. And this is from a friend to knit with. It is called the Beatrice Knits by Leslie Friend. And I bought this particular yarn from Turtle Purl after I saw Leslie knitting on these. And so I knit my first one, and then put this aside for a while. And now I'm knitting on the second one, and I'd like to get it finished up. This is a nice long knit. So I finished that one up, and this is very tight on my hand, but I have small hands and a small wrist, and so that's how I started it, because I have arthritis in this thumb. And on a Zoom a couple of weeks ago, I believe it was maybe Bonnie mentioned that about how her mother wanted a mitt that was a little bit tighter, because when it gets chilly outside, and especially in a chillier room, when it's chilly outside or even inside, the arthritis kind of starts to act up, and to have something tight against that and maybe warming up over that hand. And that's what made me think, okay, this is not too tight for my particular hand. So I have cast on my second one and knitting around on that. And what I'm trying to do is like maybe knit a color change on it every day, just to get moving on it, because I'd love to have a secondary one on this other one. And I think I could still pull this down and still be able to knit. Maybe I'll keep you posted on that. But that's one of my whips in progress. That's the Beatrice mitts, and you can get that pattern on Ravelry from a friend to knit, which is Leslie Friend. And then I think that's all the knits that I have. That's my whips. I just wanted to share right before we go. I have started a little basket here to keep me kind of sort of honest. You know by listening to earlier in the episode that it's not totally keeping me honest, but I brought out a basket that I bought at our Peoria Civic Center when I was quilting. So it has to be at least 20 years ago. And I brought it back out, and I have put into it my spring yarns here to kind of keep me in thought process of what I want to be knitting on this spring. And I encourage you to get out your basket and do that as well. And it sits over in the corner so that as I walk by, it keeps me honest as to what I want to be knitting on next. And so that's it. Full disclosure, right? If nothing else, here at PJ Knits, I'm going to be honest too. I will be honest with you. Yeah, plans are great. Yes, I want to knit out of my personal yarn shop. Yes, I want to focus on sweaters that are ahead of the season. Here in central Illinois, one never knows when the season's going to change to spring, as it did a couple of weeks ago when we were up to 50s, or when it's going to turn around and be frigid in the zeros. So, change of season is really a state of mind and a state of where you live in. So, again, I will always be honest with you and say that, I'm not perfect. And it's always knitter's choice around here. And I hope that I have inspired you today to do several things. Check out, a sweater to start knitting on if you've never knit on a sweater before. I would love for you to knit along with us on a sweater of your choosing. I am loving the 52 Weeks of Easy Knits book. If there's something out of there that you want to knit and join me with, whether it's the cover sweater or the comfy sweater, I would love to do that. We'll talk about that. Comment below if you are interested in that. I am just, like I said, super, super pleased, and I am just so thankful for all of you, for the 501 subscribers. I hope you will continue to stay with me. I hope that today was fun for you. I hope that you will come back next time. I hope you will tell friends about PJ Knits podcast, and thank you so much. Next time, I am going to start curating a little basket of goodies for, I believe or not necessarily a basket, a box of goodies for, in honor of our over 500 subscribers. And so I'm going to start thinking about that for next time. Some things to put into that for a big giveaway. I think, when you get over 500, you have to do something, right? You have to do something. So anyway, thank you so much. And until next time, knit on, guys, knit on. And thanks for tuning in.